Hi everyone, I'm Corey Newton-Smith, and I'm here today with my colleague Ricardo Minguez-Pablos, and we're really excited to talk to you about onboarding to Azure IoT. I wanted to start out today by talking a little bit about the importance of IoT and digital transformation, because the way we build applications is changing. In the past, applications collected and stored all their data in relational databases. The primary source was human input, and data was really reactive. IoT has been a really foundational part of the emerging predictive era for many years, so this might not be that surprising, but in the business world, this is pretty revolutionary. In the predictive era, we can take both physical and digital signals, and we can store them in the cloud. These signals can feed AI and analytics and power applications that enable our customers to be a lot more proactive and even predictive. IoT's role in this is crucial. It turns out that enterprises will be generating 76 zettabytes, that's 76 million petabytes by just 2024, and 61% of that data will come from IoT sources. Here you can see that most of our customers today are innovators and early adopters. About 84% of the customers sit beyond early adopter and the mainstream market, and they will require easy-to-use solutions that provide rapid time to value. As IoT crosses the chasm and goes mainstream, we unlock the creation of a lot of IoT data. This is the reality we're facing if we succeed in our mission to simplify IoT. Our vision is to simplify IoT connectivity and monitoring so that you can realize increasing value along the spectrum that you see here on this slide. By enabling analysis and improvement, and then transformation and expansion of your business into new opportunities. The reality is that there are a lot of challenges at the beginning of the investment curve. Everything from technology challenges to investment challenges and even organizational challenges. Today, we're going to talk about solving common technology needs. And we're going to do that through the lens of Azure IoT Central, our APaaS development environment, in the Azure IoT platform, plus the PaaS IoT reference architecture. The goal of this session is to explain to you how to onboard to Azure IoT. But I want to be super clear that onboarding is not a decision that you need to make up front between PaaS and APaaS. We would like for you to think of onboarding as a journey. As such, this session will detail a journey that leads to improved outcomes. We're going to start off by explaining how to build devices for Azure IoT. This will mean that you build a device once and then you can use it everywhere in the ecosystem. And this will really set you up for future success regardless of your solutions approach. And then we're going to show you the value of beginning your journey with IoT Central, our APaaS development environment. And finally, we're going to highlight that by starting with IoT Central, you'll be able to acquire the expertise to clarify your solution needs. It will help you to set a strategic direction with confidence, and it will show the value to align your organization on the future direction. So with that, let's get to understanding how everything fits together in Azure IoT. So IoT solutions start with devices. These are the source of the signal that you want to fuel your digital transformation. But before we start our cloud journey, I want to hand it over to my colleague, Rito, and have him speak to our unified approach to device development and provisioning in Azure IoT. Over to you, Rito.
Thank you, Corey. So the first thing is to talk about what kind of devices we can connect to Azure IoT. We support a wide range of devices, from small devices like these chipsets that are running real-time operating systems like Azure RTOS, FreeRTOS, Azure Sphere, or things like that. And we also support bigger devices like Raspberry Pi that can run Linux or Windows. We support even bigger devices like servers that act as gateways. And we created the Azure Device Certification Program to give you guarantees that these devices can connect to Azure IoT seamlessly. So this program has 3 different levels. The first level is Azure IoT Connected. So this program ensures that your devices understand and support the Device Provisioning Protocol, DPS. This is a service that we recommend to use because it provides high availability and allows to provision devices at a scale where you can provision hundreds, thousands, or even millions of devices in a very secure way using different authentication mechanisms, from shared access keys to certificates, TPMs, HSMs, and things like that. The next level in the program is the Edge Manage. This program ensures that your Azure Edge runtime is properly configured and can be connected to Azure. And the last one, and this is the one that I'm more excited of, is the Azure IoT plug and play. So let me talk a little bit about Azure IoT plug and play. In the world of IoT, devices are sending data, lots of data, and data with different shapes, different formats. And how are you going to make any business decision of that data if you don't have the context on how to understand that data? So with Azure IoT plug and play, you are able to create a model to describe those devices. This model is called DTDL and is using a language that we created that is called Digital Twins Definition Language. And this, with this language, you can describe your device's capabilities in terms of telemetry and what's the shape of the data that the telemetry is sent to Azure. You can define properties. This allows you to manage the state of your devices, even if they are offline. And finally, we also support commands to enable command and control scenarios where you can invoke different actions on your devices from the cloud. So these three things can be defined in DTDL. Those are JSON documents. And these documents can be shared with everyone in the world by pushing those to our GitHub device model repository. This repository is an open GitHub repo where anyone can submit models. And each model has one ID, that is the identification of that model. So the thing how it works is that devices will announce just that ID, saying, hey, I'm sending data based on this model. So then solutions like IoT Central can query the model repo, pull that model, and then create customized experiences to interact with those devices. So let's jump into a demo to see Azure IoT plug and play in action. I'm going to start in Azure IoT Central, your entry point to your Azure IoT solution. In Central, we are going to create a central application to connect devices, send telemetry, manage state, and send commands to those devices. So the first thing that we need is to create one instance of this central application. Once I create this application, I will have access to Azure IoT Hub, and to DPS, storage, and all the services required to create these experiences. The first thing that we need is to create a device identity. This device identity will create all the credentials to establish a secure communication from the devices. So here, when you click connect, you will see which are the credentials, the passwords, and that are also available as a QR code. So now let's see how can I configure my phone to connect to Central. This is my Android phone, and I installed this application from the Android store. It's also available in the iOS store, the IoT plug and play. And the first thing that the application needs is this QR code. Once the QR code is recognized, this application is connecting to Azure IoT Central, and a number of things are going to happen. The first thing is that this device credential that was registered will become provisioned. And once the device is provisioned, it will be also associated to a device template. Device templates are a key concept in IoT Central. This is what led us to model the data and the interactions with the device. So let's take a look to this device template. This device template defines some commands, like you can turn on the lights, define properties. We also have sensors that are sending telemetry, like the battery, the acceleration, or the geolocation from this device. And all of these properties are defined in these DTDL models. These are these JSON files that contains the interfaces in DTDL to describe the device capabilities. Here, this application is using, let's see, the root interface, that is DTMI Azure IoT phone as a device. Based on this DTMI, Central is able to query our GitHub repository to find these devices and automatically import those files into Central. So let's see this repo. So this is the IoT plug and play models repository. And here we can search for this ID where you can see the exact same interface that we were using. Now that we have the template configured and the devices connected and associated to the template, we can see other central capabilities to interact with the device. The first thing I'm going to show you are the properties. So these properties can be sent from the device. So now we can see the device model, the OS, and things like that. But we can also interact with this state. So you can update this property from the device. And the property will be updated here, or we can also update properties from the cloud. See the update, and the property will be updated here without any user interaction. This is the bidirectional communication. And of course, you can also run commands, and let's say that I want to disable the rotation, and now the commands will be received by the device. Finally, we can inspect all the telemetry and all the data. This telemetry that is being sent here is received as raw data. So we will see all the events as raw data that are coming. But instead of seeing the data as just pure JSON payloads, we can go to this overview where we have these dashboards with charts to see how these data values evolve over time. Or you can customize these charts with your own visualizations. We have a lot of resources to help device developers to connect their devices to Azure IoT. The main entry point is our GitHub repo Azure/IoT, where you have a created list of resources for Azure IoT. And we also launched recently the device developer docs in docsmicrosoft.com, where you will have a comprehensive list of different languages, SDKs for different platforms, from constrained devices to bigger devices. And we also have different tools that you can use to interact with these devices, from CLI tools to interact with IoT Hub, IoT Explorer, or the DTDL VS Code extensions to help you creating these DTDL models. All of these are in this slide, and you're welcome to contribute to our open source SDKs.
So Rito just showed us the importance of IoT plug and play and the Azure Certified Device Program in building a healthy ecosystem, as well as the role that the device provisioning service plays in provisioning securely and at scale devices into Azure. Next up, let's look at building our cloud solution. So the Azure cloud is really powerful. There are thousands of services to pick from and many considerations to make when building in a hyperscale environment. When faced with the question of where to start, it's oftentimes best to look at how people are building using the cloud today. So cloud services can be IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service delivered over the internet. And they can be PaaS. Examples would include our IoT Hub, which is a low latency, high frequency data ingest and bidirectional command and control service. IaaS and PaaS are needed to build and deliver an application in the SaaS layer. These are ready to use services delivered over the internet, like Microsoft Teams, where all you have to do is sign up and you can start using them. Remember earlier that I mentioned that we would be talking about IoT Central. Let's look at where it fits. It turns out that there's a type of service meant to simplify the journey towards delivering an application. APaaS offerings provide a cloud environment to build, manage, and deliver applications with a lot less work. An APaaS offering takes care of scale and most of the configuration, but still requires developer input to build out a finished solution. IoT Central is an APaaS. It's a ready-made environment for IoT solution development, and it's complete with an out-of-the-box UX as well as an API surface. One way to think about all of this is as a spectrum of technology. So I think of it as PaaS services are delivered on IaaS, and APaaS is built on top of PaaS. And a SaaS offering depends on an application platform, so it's kind of delivered by one or a combination of its predecessors. Before proceeding with any type of technology, though, it helps to kind of break down in big boxes the necessary capabilities of all IoT solutions, regardless of your approach. So, devices are provisioned and connected to Azure IoT. after which the data is acquired and it begins its processing journey, and that will happen through hot and warm and cold path, depending on what your solution needs. This is all about getting IoT data. Your goal in the long-term success of your solution, though, depends on using your data to deliver business value. So here you'll need a management layer for monitoring and controlling the devices so that they remain secure and also reliable. And you will invest here in integrations to unlock analysis and improvements to your overall business. So here you'll see that there's a set of services. These are recommended by the Azure IoT PaaS reference architecture. And you can see in this diagram, it's really aligned with the solution components we were looking at in the previous slide. On the far right is where a developer will unlock the value of the IoT data by integrating into business applications or building custom applications for management. Building solutions using PaaS services requires pretty significant cloud expertise because you're taking on the operational overhead beyond just development. So you'll be updating and managing services and their dependencies, as well as building out things like high availability and disaster recovery and elastic scale. And you'll have to do that across all of the services that you leveraged. This was an acceptable investment for innovators and early adopters. But as we enter the mainstream market, this approach is not aligned with the skills and needs of the early majority. This is why we built IoT Central. See here how IoT Central takes advantage of the same core PaaS services recommended in the IoT reference architecture. IoT Central is built on top of a managed multi-tenant PaaS services layer, and it's this layer that delivers that high availability, elastic scale, and disaster recovery. IoT Central also has an out-of-the-box management web experience, and this is where you can manage and view and analyze and secure your data and devices. Through the IoT extensibility surface, you can export data for business integration. You could trigger alerts and connect to something like Power Automate flows. Or you could use the IoT Central REST API to query device data from IoT Central and visualize it in an application like Power BI. We're committed to simplifying IoT. We want you to start as high as you can with our APaaS offering IoT Central and go as low as you must with our Azure PaaS services. IoT Central is designed to simplify and accelerate IoT solution assembly and operations, and it does that because it's pre-assembling PaaS services from the IoT platform and across Azure that are needed to build enterprise-grade IoT solutions. The result is all of the power of Azure IoT PaaS services, but it's orchestrated and managed for you. So if your solution requires features that IoT Central doesn't support, you may need to extend your solution using Central's extensibility features, or even develop a custom solution using a collection of Azure PaaS components. Rest assured that we have tooling and documentation to assist in moving your devices from Central to an IoT hub that you manage. We have seen customer exploration and evaluation of IoT Central build both expertise and credibility. By starting with IoT Central, you will have a more robust understanding of your solution needs. You will be able to clarify your investment challenges, and you can even acquire expertise that will help to galvanize your approach within your organization. Any of the gaps that you communicate in IoT Central will influence our roadmap and will form the prioritized list of custom investments that you need to make when you're building with PaaS services. A customer that starts with Central builds valuable expertise regardless of whether or not they go to production with IoT Central or later build a custom solution to meet complex business needs using PaaS services. Our mission at Microsoft is to empower every person and every business on the planet to achieve more. In Azure IoT, we're committed to simplifying IoT. We want you to start as high as you can with our APaaS offering IoT Central and go as low as you must with Azure PaaS services. There's two key takeaways from the talk today. First, please approach solution building as a journey, and then it begins with Azure IoT Central. Azure IoT is simplifying IoT by providing you an out-of-the-box and ready-to-use UX and API surface that works with lots of customization options. And second, devices can be built to work with both IoT Central and IoT Hub plus device provisioning service. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you here today. Before you leave, I want to share a few resources. So if you head on over to aka.ms, Azure IoT Arch, you will find a Getting Started with Azure IoT documentation aligned with today's session. It's been really great talking to you today, and I hope that this helps to clarify how you can get started onboarding into Azure IoT. Thank you.